It's great because I love this topic, and I'm very happy to see a pretty well-filled room on this day too. I know many of you will have had drinks and celebrations last night, but it's a really, really cool topic that I like, and I have some questions prepared, but I also have some questions that the guys don't know yet, just to keep it a little bit interesting. Let's start with something, you're in the media buying world. How, because there's so many new medias and there's so much happening out there, how has your world changed? How are things on your front when you're out there every day trying to support your growth through your media buying strategies?
Yeah, it's a good question because it has changed a lot over the years. I've been doing it for 12 years, media buying. We've done it with a lottery business in the US and Australia. We were running ads across all the platforms we know, and I can confidently say that most of these advertising platforms today are broken. And they're broken for reasons around the data that they're sending you is not being as accurate as it should be. But I think a bigger problem is the consensus of the user is changing. And when you look at anything that you've bought yourself, such as a product, the first thing you do is you go to YouTube, you look at a review, and you have an authority give you a response about what you should or shouldn't buy. The same thing is applicable to the gaming world. Most of us today will go and look at streamers. Those streamers are giving us a real in-depth experience about the platforms that we're using and allowing us to then have a little bit more trust. So media buying is definitely shifting because the consensus and the platforms are shifting as well. So we've had to completely switch our strategies from CPCs and CPA to now actually being more personal and being more strategic about the campaigns that we do.
And we have someone on stage who lives in the world of data, which is way above what I would ever understand, I'll be very honest. I admire it. Max, you do data, you do AI, you are the master of what is the foundation of everything we do, all the adverts. In the olden days, it was, here's a poster, I see the product, I buy it, I have no idea who saw it, who does. Now everything is analyzed out there. What would you say is anything that surprised you, anything that you saw that helps in the marketing of, say, casinos and gaming companies? What does the data say? What's exciting? What should we know?
Yeah. That's a good question. Let's begin with just me asking a question on how much money you spend on digital marketing. And that's really important to understand on how you do this. And do this increase the overall brand value you get out of this? Exactly. It's not just traditional marketing and traditional advertising campaigns you might do, but actually investment in getting some data, understanding the competition, and understanding who you are within the top range. Like, if you are at the top 3, you understand who your competition is, and everybody knows it. But if you are top 65, that's getting quite complicated, and that's what I see from major operators in companies like Stake or PC Game, or actually our customers, investing lots in data and competitive intelligence and building the brands using data.
Because that's probably, it's good that you mentioned those two brands because I admire them. I know they are, not without controversy at times because of the way they grow, but they are so good at what they do. I know the PC Game guys, I saw Stake being launched and we were all looking at the site and going, wow, this is good. And they rise so meteorically, is that the word? A lot of people will not understand how they do that. And to understand that is probably because they use data very, very cleverly. That is probably one of the keys. So everyone wants to be Stake, right? I mean, we all go out there, I'm going to be the next Stake. But really, it's a lot more than making a shiny website. But once you have them, you come in then, and how do you keep them? Or, how do you, because there's so many operators out there now. I always compare our industry with a mall where every single shop sells the same thing. Why should I go in that shop and stay in that shop? So you're the specialist with this in terms of conversion and loyalty and looking after players. What's the thing that everyone needs to know about this at the moment and that is out there that you do that is the killer thing?
Yeah, so I think data's all around us, and there's you can query a million lines of data and not being able to crunch what is actually what you should be doing next. So when it comes to the likes of Stake, who's got loads of data, to make that actionable is something that you need a tech stack that makes sense of the data, because I think every operator here has so much data they don't even know what to do with and what that actually means. So when it comes to crunching those numbers and finding out what you should be doing next, this is something that we at Fast Track are very capable of to make sure that we make the right decisions, and it keeps operators on the front foot rather than being really reactive to what they're seeing with the players.
And when we spoke before to prepare this panel, you mentioned the importance of fast and timely data and things that should be quick. So in the olden days, 20 years ago, when I helped our marketing manager, it was like we had the player data from the day. There was a nice data dump into the data warehouse, and then the next day we would sort of look through who won what, and then we would do a little email campaign that would go out the next day. So by the time the player gets it, it's like 2 days old. How important is it, and how hard is it, or what can you do to do something that is much more real time? Because we live now, you may want to react to an event or a meme or something that happened to the player on the side. How crucial is this real time aspect to be fast, and how do you do that with so much data?
Yeah, I can take this. So when it comes to real time, it's very hard to define actually what is real time, because there's always a trade-off between commercial with hosting, because if you've got an API pinging every 200th of a second, that's going to cost a lot in hosting data, etc. You should know in terms of the costs of running large numbers of data. But then what is the commercial benefit of being able to react in real time to important events that happen maybe in a player's session? So for instance, it could be a player wins 1000x on a particular slot. They lose 5k in a particular session. Their NGR is over and above the theoretical value of what they should be playing at. These are the kind of important moments in a player's lifestyle or lifetime that they should be engaging with, and have some kind of a real trigger and metric to be able to engage with that player, to find out if they've got extra liquidity you could be bonusing them with, or they, maybe if a player loses a lot of money in a short space of time, then of course you can't turn that negative situation into a positive situation, but at least what you can do is use some real-time metrics and triggers to be able to neutralize that situation, to not being able to lose that player, blocks himself and then moves on to some competition and they win that player. So something as simple as being able to react in real time to an important moment in the player's journey could be very valuable.
And is that possible even on a large scale? If I have hundreds of thousands of players that I might want to interact with, like, is the tech there to facilitate this?
Yeah, so there's 3 types of technologies that we can use at scale. One is REST. I don't want to go too technical, but REST API maybe has limitations when it comes to number of API calls. Other than that, once you get to maybe an active player base of 50,000 players or more, then you would move on to either RabbitMQ or Kafka Stream, which is very scalable when it comes to React in real time, because you've got some scalable queues.
And in terms of advertising and media and everything, sometimes it feels like when you go out there, a lot of the media shifted away from classic banner advertising and sites to everyone's on YouTube, everyone's a streamer, everyone gets their players from there, it seems. Not without controversy again, but it seems the adverts, the media behind it, it hasn't changed much. Like, I still get infuriating pre-rolls that I have to click away that entice me. What's a better way to target your players rather than trying to annoy them with traditional adverts that nobody likes or watches? What should we be looking at instead of that kind of thing?
Well, I think using the likes of Blask and using the likes of Fast Track to understand who your audience is and who you're actually talking to. The reason that those ads become irritating is because they're talking to the wrong person. And so when you look at really good creators that have orchestrated a campaign and that they're able to connect with you using the right words and using the right language, that's the type of ad that you want to engage in. And so really, I think it comes back to the operator and giving the strategy to the influencer or the KOL or the streamer, and really articulating how they want to present themselves, who you're actually talking to. We dealt with a lot of streamers, and I can tell you most of them are very creative. They're not business savvy. And so you kind of have to teach them along the way what they should say and shouldn't say to make sure that they're connecting with the audience. No one wants an irritating ad, and trust me, I believe the stat is we see around 10 to 15,000 ads a day. And when you're in Asia, it's probably double that. And so we are completely desensitized to advertising. What we are more familiar with is a real human connection. And if you can orchestrate your campaigns from the operator level to the KOL to ensure that that's a streamlined conversation in a 15-second clip, that's where you're going to get the most conversion.
And are there any tools in terms of how I target my players? So for example, it seems everything is hyper-targeted, and there's this, every one of you in the room has had this. We all have had this. You talk about something, and then the next time you open your phone, you see an ad for it, and we all think it's our phone spying on us or listening to us, but probably it's more likely hyper-targeted, my footprint. Actually, it's a question really for both of you, because where is this going in terms of, in AI, of course, the big question is what AI tools should I use for my data and for targeting and for finding the right clients and getting them through the door, but also in advertising, how am I being targeted? What are the trends in what seems to be insanely personalized targeting? It seems advertisers know more about me than I do. How do they do that?
Do you want to take it?
Yeah,
Go for it.
I can take over. AI is superpower behind personalized things, recommendation system, and it's really important to understand how to use it properly. It's not just about treating AI as a magic pill that can solve everything. It's all about data. As an operator, as an advertiser, as an affiliate, even if you're a supplier, platform provider, game developer, always look at your data. That's the most important, because the huge principle behind this is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And if the data is not good, if you are not sure that everything's correct in the data warehouse, you've just spent much less time prepping everything out and doing that homework, let's call it like this, it won't gonna work. And it won't gonna work on the magical process behind this if you don't understand the technology behind and treat it as a black box. It's really important to understand what you are using, that AI, machine learning, data science tools are applicable for you to build the system that will be. Keeping in mind all of this, personalized needs of every single customer you have based on the data, based on the clusters and segments you have, but also understanding what's the most effective, the most suitable technology for you to use right now. Because if it will cost you $1 million to build it in-house, but you'll get the ROI of just 500K, well, you'll better not use AI at all. But if you'll get the good ROI, well, that's the decent price for it.
Yeah, and I think the ability for operators especially to profile their consumers obviously adds to the intelligence of the AI to make informed decisions on what the players should be doing next, rather than what they feel they should be doing next, or a good feeling or a finger in the air to say, one example could be a Friday reactivation campaign. Say, revenue's down this month compared to last month. Let's do a reactivation campaign to spike the revenue to at least match or attain what we achieved the same time last month. Now, a typical operator in that scenario would probably end up with maybe 4 to 6 segmented campaigns, usually based on value, 0 to 250, 250 to 500, and so on, up till VIP level. And so there'll be 6 different segmentations for 6 campaigns, 6 bonuses, etc. Now, if you're working in more of an intelligent way, what you could, for instance, have is work from a centralized content bank and media library to have hand-picked content for the AI to then make the decision on what content block gets what creative, what bonus, what level of bonus, what channel, what time of day to send it. And all these different variants can add up to what we would class now as hyper-personalization. So instead of these 6 variants, you could have, say if you have 8 different variants of content block, maybe 4 different styles of creators for different player profiles, maybe 16 different variants of bonuses with different values in between, over 4 different channels, which could be email, WhatsApp, Viber, WeChat, Telegram. And based on the consumer profile of what they were susceptible to maybe prior and the typical times a day that they'd like to log in and play, you could have then up to 16,000 different variants of this very basic Friday reactivation campaign that could take 3 or 4 minutes to put together in a platform that is capable of that, rather than some CRM guy or team working all week to come up with 6 different variants of a campaign that would essentially be mail blasting to 6 different areas.
Wow, okay, times have changed, because I do remember we did exactly this manual work in the past. So like, oh, we have an email shot on Friday, everyone's excited and putting, luckily those times are gone. So let's look at a very classic scenario that I come across a lot when I work with operators and licensees and people setting up. Maybe let's try also put a focus a bit on Asia and the Philippines. So in the Philippines, we now have the Pigos. There's about 70 odd Pigo licenses now. They're not all live. I think there's about a handful of guys who really rule the market. We all know who they are. There's a few more guys who have really good potential, who are growing, and there's a few who are preparing to launch. And this happens in other markets as well. I get this a lot. Startups coming in, seeing the market, having the money, having the firepower to do it, but they need everything. And we've learned yesterday in one of the talks that the times when you had a one-stop solution, you go to one supplier and they have everything for you, are over. Like, you get the platform, but then there are specialists like you guys, and I want to use your knowledge in this next question. If I'm an operator who now starts, say, I start my Pigo here, I have my license, I have a nice little platform and sportsbook, I'm happy. From each of you, what is the one thing that I need from each of you to succeed in, say, Asia as a startup company? What should I really say? This is crucial. This is what I need to have a chance. Max, if you want to start, we go along, and then each of you.
Yeah, I can actually start that. Plus can act as a good starting point for you as an operator to actually, first of all, estimate the expected revenue you might get and the expected burn rate, expected spending you might gonna get on the market in terms of like traffic, marketing, some branding campaigns, because we showcase our own metric that's called the CEB, or competitive earnings baseline, for every single operator, not just in Philippines, but we have 45 countries right now. All of the world will be covered by the end of Q2, also with the United States in there. And you can actually understand who is the competition. In terms of like bookmakers, you can take a look at what sport events and the fact of what sport events are happening. Each of them are most reactful for in terms of like Blast Index rises or dips. And today at the cafe, Owen showcased me the way why the Blast Index of Philippines was growing on Fridays, because like Biana, our CMO, did not find out why this happened. They were like, well, Friday is a payday. That's why people tend to spend much more money there, and the Blast Index is highly reactive to this. So you can just outline the competitive landscape, target the cluster of operators you want to get to, see the expected revenue you might get, and analyze competitors and build your marketing strategy, your advertisement strategy, brand strategy based on something your potential competitors do, and then just build a team to start attracting customers.
I suppose it's a really interesting question, because it's something that we've built our fund around and our group around, which is helping those newcomers to the market go from 0 to 1. And what you find in this industry, hopefully that's not my phone. No, that's you. What you find in this industry especially, it's like stepping on a minefield in some cases, because you're dealing with different contracts with different suppliers, because it's very modular, this industry. And if you're a newcomer coming in and you're not understanding what you should be paying for, payment service provider, what you should be paying for CRM, we're the kind of institutional co-founder to some of these startups that are in this space, that we can help navigate what they should be looking for and what they should avoid. Something that was said to me a long time ago was, the only true source of time travel is mentorship. And so when we work with these individuals, we're actually saving them the pain of what they don't know, and allowing them to enter a market at a much more rapid pace at the right price. Because you get into this industry and you'll see several different contracts from the same supplier with all different prices. And we're trying to ensure that the margins are correct so that they can actually survive. So when we talk to these founders in multiple different markets, it's about helping them go from 0 to 1 with all of the knowledge that we have and the connections that we have so that they can avoid the pain and therefore have survival on their side when they're running something like this in this industry.
Yeah, from my side, I think there's two things that I would obviously advocate in terms of what you should have in place. One would obviously be a great retention strategy. There's one thing being able to, if you've got deep pockets to media buy all day long and to get the traffic through your front door, and there's another thing trying to keep that traffic. So rather than, a lot of startups I see come and go and they fail in the first 6 months because they literally have 90% initial marketing spend on acquiring traffic and then nothing, no net at the bottom trying to catch them as they're trying to leave. And then the other thing, which is not really something that we focus on a lot, and that's risk management. And that's being able to identify the bad players or the bad actors within an active player base. Bonus abusers being one. Someone that's multi-accounting syndicates, people that know how to navigate through front-end KYC companies, etc. The real professionals that take welcome offers. And turning them into cash by navigating through wagering requirements, breaking the mechanics of slot games. These are the types of things that you need at least some type of risk strategy in place to be able to defend your P&L, because we all know that there's a lot of suppliers on the take in this industry, and as an operator, being able to kind of circumvent your P&L and stop the need to round up or round down when it comes to your GGR versus your NGR.
And another thing that I come across with operators, mostly against startups and guys who just get their licenses and they want to get out there and they see this gaming industry, want to make money, everyone's making money. They seem to sometimes pick target markets at random almost. They just say, they ask you like, what's a good target market? And I'm like, what do you want to do? Like, you guys see different markets all over the world, different countries, and the data from it and what's happening there. If I'm an operator in Asia, or I want to target one of the pre-regulated markets in Asia, no matter how pre-regulated they may be, how big do you see differences just in the data and in your fields of work? How big are the differences really between the various, just in Asia, the different markets? Like, if I try the same strategy on one country, am I guaranteed to fail in the next? How huge are the differences? And what's really crucial in Asia if I want to succeed here?
We are going through this process at the moment, and when we're looking at the data across what happens in places like the Philippines versus places like Japan, what we've discovered is definitely understanding localization strategies at its core. What you advertise here is completely different to what you advertise in Japan. And it'd be very naive to just get the same campaign and blast it everywhere and hope for the best. And so using, like what we do, we use Blask, we look at all the different data sets across all the different regions. We can see GGR growth, we can see FTD growth, we can have the new metric now, which is BAP, basically to show you the market share of a brand and their impact in a certain region. It's then using those data sets from Blask to actually reverse engineer how we can actually come into this market and not waste money on campaigns that no one wants to listen to. We don't want to create those irritating ads, and the only way that we can avoid creating irritating ads is really understanding the people, understanding if the market is worth it and if the volume is there, and then localizing our strategy to that particular country or state. So,
what does the data say, Max? How different are the different countries?
They are really drastically, and it's really important for, like, I know that there are lots of English-speaking managers, executives operating business. From what I found personally when we were looking at the market of Japan, numbers drastically change for brands that are localized and not localized, because in Asia, if we're talking like about general population of countries, and Asia is having countries with millions, hundreds of millions of population, it's really important to understand that there is the language barrier and the way how you communicate with your customers, how you attract your players, how you build your brand campaigns, marketing campaigns, really have to rely on local language a lot, and that's really important to understand from the very beginning and invest in this.
And in terms of retention, what's the loyalty? I know, so from experience, for example, they always say that Japanese players are super loyal. They will read your terms and conditions from the first letter to the last to check everything. But once they're through the door, apparently they're super loyal. But if you go to India, and they're worth a lot, their LTVs are apparently fantastic. But then if you go to India, you get like 1 million players, but they all just spend 50 rupees and try and rip you off. No offense in it. So, these are these sort of stereotypes we get. Like, what's the difference in terms of, how loyal are your player? How do they behave? Where in Asia would you, if you were an operator, maybe prefer to be? Who are the loyal guys and who are the ones that will stress my skills more if I want to keep them?
Yeah, so I think it all comes down to how you decentralize or centralize your marketing team. So if you're, for instance, a global operator, a lot of people would think it would make sense to centralize the team and have a kind of a blanket strategy with nuances in between. But time and time again, that's kind of proven wrong, especially in Asia. You can tell if you're kind of working from a globalized European strategy, perhaps maybe built for MGA markets and moved over, it simply doesn't work. So a lot of operators that I've seen have to really localize when it comes to working in Asia. And a lot of that I'm seeing time and time again coming up with new gamification techniques. So where you can implement maybe XP strategies or leveling, virtual currencies, shops, mini games, jackpots, wheels, pachinko, etc. So when it comes to creating a sense of loyalty to a player, it's no good now just relying on the product to bring the customer back at the time when you feel is right. It's about creating a journey for that customer, understanding the reason that customer came to your product or site in the first place, and use that as a playbook or metric to be able, and a playbook to be able to bring that customer back to your site, and give them a reason to do so as well. So for instance, if you set some type of challenge, log in and play 5 times and deposit this week, then get X on the Friday, that's something that's going to give them a reason to come back. So you can have the greatest marketing CRM strategy in the world, but if you don't give your customers a reason and a good reason to come back, then you'll be basically pushing out a margin eroding reactivation campaign in 7 to 14 days time.
And so we have about 7 minutes left. I remember, non-gaming related, when, I just want to use this as an example for culture for my next question. When Uber first arrived here, they did what Uber always does. They barged in, they just said, here we are, we don't care if it's not lawful, use our drivers. And they got their way, and Uber sort of established itself, and then suddenly Grab came along. And Grab kicked their backside so hard that Uber in the end essentially gave up. Now officially they teamed up, but we all know Grab understood the market better and overtook an already established powerful player. And that is, for me, a wonderful example of how a tiny startup can go to this big American company because they understand the market better and kick them out and you basically defeat them at their own game. And to me, it feels like that's really, really important, especially in Asia, that you understand culture. But how can I use data to better grasp and target and get the cultural approach right? Because culture is such a, you can't really define it, right? It's different things. How can I use data to get my language, my cultural approach right?
At Flask, we have the dedicated section that's called AI customer profile, whether we just collect lots and lots of data from various providers, feed it through LLMs, and then synthesize what we call the customer profile. Actually, that's one of the most popular posts category on LinkedIn, and we just highlight some specific player portraits and player personas, so you'll understand this, you'll get this without just hiring the research agency or the marketing agencies if you wanted to bootstrap it quickly. And it's really important to know much more about the deeper look on what product you are building. If it's sports, you have to understand in the specific country what's more popular in bettors' mind, Premier League or La Liga. What are like major sports events? Like in India, we see IPL. It's like the one and only event there that accumulates so many power around, and past year's success of stake was really tied closely with the IPL, and we can see how drastically it overcame established market players there in India, such as Dafabet, as we can see from our data, closer to the finals of the IPL, and that says that they do know how to not just operate the market, but they understand all of the powers behind, like, well, talking payments. When I moved to Asia, it was really interesting to me that what I was familiar with paying with, like, card tap in Europe is not a convenient thing here, like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, even Philippines, QR codes, it's dominate. It's a different culture and a different way of interacting with things we used to interact way different than these people. And we have to keep this in mind and use data to track this, like sports, slots, games, payments, competition.
I think just on your point about Uber and Grab and that transition that they had, and you know, we've watched this and we've kind of dissected how these things happened, and you'll find this even with Fast Track and even with Blask and some of the products we do, consumers today are going where they're treated best. And you'll find that when Grab was entering this market, what they were doing is they were using that data, listening to what the consumer wanted, understanding what was happening in the consensus of those users, and then shipping features into their product as quickly as possible. So that when a user had a choice between Uber or the product that was listening to them, that was shipping new features that satisfied their needs, they were able to choose that. And you know, you see this with Fast Track. You guys are listening to the different words that are coming from your clients. They're asking for a certain thing. Next week you have a new feature and it's ready there. So that's how you're going to retain your customers, but it's also how you're going to beat your competitors. And I see this with a lot of large organizations, not just in Asia, but around the world. They get very, very big, and then they get very, very slow, and then they forget to ship fast. So I think these large organizations should almost create a division, which is your growth hacking team, your social listening team, and all they do day in, day out is make sure that they're shipping new features for those customers to ensure that the value is there in comparison to any of the competitors. And that's how you'll stay in the top 10 in the market, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's all about knowing your customer. And clearly, back when that happened, Grab knew exactly who their customer was and was to be able to leverage over what Uber's value or value proposition was. And I like to use one of the examples of, say, Netflix. So you go on Netflix and you're surprised at how intuitive and how much in tune it is with yourself on what you want to watch next, what you should be watching next, because you watch this, you should like this, and then you like it, and you're like, wow, how did it know? So I like to call it the Netflix effect. And when you know your customer as good as what Netflix can do, this is when I think the gaming world in Asia can take heed at what a company like Netflix have done to be able to turn that into something positive. To attract new people or to even retain their current players.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes left. So any questions in the room in terms of, target markets, how to keep players, how to use AI? Raise your hands if you have a question. We have a question. Can you get Alex a microphone, please?
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, guys. Been fans of all your technology, although I know Ionic the least of the bunch, so we'll fix that. And Frank, a great presentation as always. And I'm really glad because this is the one I wanted to give. Instead, I'm doing at 350. We're doing one on the new generation. So since you guys didn't talk much about the future, we will at 350. All right, small plug. Anyways. Did you see the news about YouTube yesterday? They're throwing off all influencers, all gaming providers that are not in Google approved jurisdictions, all right? So that's a big change because, well, first it was Twitch was great and Stake was all over that and helped them grow and set this whole influence culture in motion for our industry. And then Twitch threw everybody off and people said, oh, we'll go to Kick, but nobody really did that. So YouTube, which has always been important, became even more important. And now YouTube's throwing everybody off if you're not in a whitelisted jurisdiction. In the Philippines, according to Google, last time I checked, and I've heard it's about to change, but I haven't seen it yet, Philippines is not a whitelisted jurisdiction from Google's eyes, right? And this is something that I mentioned to PAGCOR 3 years ago, and I said, guys, it's great that we're giving you all this revenue, and it's great that you're doing great, but you've got to help the industry. You've got to talk to the guys at Google. You've got to talk to the guys. Facebook will now take some very benign stuff from us here in the Philippines. But I'm just wondering what, you guys who are so well on top of the stuff, I've been following Fast Track since it was founded, and I've been following Damien and Blask since it was founded as well. Doing some really, really cool technology, some cool stuff. But how will we address the lack of, where video is obviously key, how do we address the lack of a major portal that you can find the stuff on that you actually want to go to and consume things on, because YouTube's got such fantastic inventory? Who is the grab that's going to unseat Uber in Asia? What do you think?
So I can talk on this because we've done a lot of ad buying over the years, and we've done everything on TikTok, Facebook, Google. Your ad account is open for about 2 weeks and then it's gone because you've got to deal with all those issues. It's not a reliable source as it used to be as a traffic source, and you'll have a lot of agencies what do kind of black hat strategies. That's not a good way to run a business, and if that's your main lead source to keep your GGR up, you're on rocky roads. So I think when you look at the operators such as Stake and you look at the collaboration that they did with the likes of Drake, what you should be looking at is the creativity and the understanding of the policies of these platforms. You can play the game if you understand the policy and you get creative with the content. You cannot, in Australia, for instance, Drake recently did the Penthouse advertisement where he was on the laptop. It was showed Stake, no mention of gambling, no mention of call to actions. It was a humor type of parody video. Now, if you read the policies on Google, these are the sorts of things that you can get away with. So the policies are always going to change and they're never going to be in your favor. It's you understanding them so that you can play within that arena without you being blacklisted or targeted. Don't do spammy ads, be real, follow the guidelines as much as you possibly can, and you can have some success there. We're building a platform at the moment which is trying to replicate what AdSense has done with the DSP network and the influencers, and actually paying influencers for the views that they have. So soon, a lot of operators now will be able to come to our platform featured, select whoever they want to work with or whatever banner they want to work with, and directly buy it from there. And this is a way for you to get away from the likes of AdSense and Facebook. I despise these companies with a passion because we spent millions of dollars with them and they treat us like dirt. And you guys have probably spent tens of millions of dollars with them and they won't even get on a phone call with you or send you a proper email. So why give them more money? So you need to get clever, work out their policies, reverse engineer it, work with PAGCOR to try and make this a whitelisted company, and just increase the level of your creativity and the output that you're doing in a more authentic, less spammy way, and the platforms will allow it.
That deserves a round of applause. Best answer I've heard so far today.